get your attention, please? Welcome to the Game Dev Club's Summer Game Jam. But before we get started, I just want to make sure that everyone is in the Discord first, because this is where we will be having like all the announcements, especially throughout the week. This is where we'll be having the workshops and like everything will be taking place here. So make sure if you aren't in the Discord already, join. And I'll have the QR code on the other slides as well. All right, and to go over our schedule for the week, we have 5 workshops planned. Today, we will be hosting 2 workshops. It's going to be Game Jams 101, Expectations versus Reality, hosted by me. Oh, my name is Mikyle. I'm leading the Game Jam. So that one's at 12:30 today. And then later at 1:15, we have theme-based game design hosted by Jerica Manuel from Netflix. For the rest of the week, tomorrow we have the Game Jams for Annie BFA projects, hosted by Tom Austin and Jack Sides. If any of you are an Annie major, or just even if you're not an Annie major, if you're interested in that and wondering how you can use Game Jams to help push your art, you can attend that tomorrow at 3 p.m. Sunday, July 21st. And then on Monday, July 22nd, we have a 2D pixel art and an animation workshop hosted by Natalie, our club's graphic designer, also at 3 p.m. And then on Tuesday, on July 23rd, we have Game Jams 101, Surviving and Thriving, hosted by Jessica, who is our Game Dev Club president and also indie producer over there. And then yeah, so those are our 5 workshops. And then just a reminder that on 12 p.m. on Saturday is when all the Game Jams submissions will be due. It'll be on the itch. We'll make sure to post an announcements leading up to it so that everything is in order and you make sure that you get the game submitted in time. And yeah, we'll also be playtesting games, and we'll be having a little award ceremony. So after everyone has playtested the games, we'll be handing out awards, maybe for like best art or best like direction with the theme and things like that. And now for the big announcement. The theme for the Game Jam is Save Yourself and Not the World. So, and then we also have a sub-theme, which is optional, Chain Reaction. But the main required theme for this jam that you must follow is Save Yourself, Not the World. Feel free to interpret that as you will, and how that leads to your designing the game and just the story and everything like that. And yeah. Thank you all for coming. I'm super happy that all of you have come out here today to participate. Yeah, feel free to get started. And in 15 minutes, well, yeah, so right now we'll be doing some team forming, and in 15 minutes, the first workshop will start. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Sorry to interrupt your brainstorming, but we are about to start the first workshop of the day. Oh, God. Yeah, so we're gonna go through the first 2 workshops, and then we can get back to all the brainstorming and working on the Game Jam. Can I get a show of hands? Raise your hand if this is your first Game Jam. Nice, okay, we have a couple experienced people, a couple people first time Game Jam, that's awesome. Well, my name is Mikyle, and welcome to Game Jams 101, Expectations versus Reality. I'm sure that all of you came here today with different expectations, whether it's your first time or you are experienced. Well, today I'm going to be sharing my experiences with you in doing game jams, and hopefully that will help set your expectations so that you can best traverse this game jam this week. But before we get started, a little bit about me. I am currently a game dev intern at STEMtails, a Unity engineer at Waxheart, and a tools programmer and tech artist at EGD Collective's Game Studio program. And this past year, I participated in 5 game jams. But in 4 out of those 5 game jams, I've either stayed up super late the night before trying to make sure that the game was done before the deadline. I've even had teammates disappear during my game jam. I had an artist just never respond, so it was up to the rest of the team, our designer and the programmer, to make all the art for the game. And there were times that I've lost motivation and I had wanted to quit halfway. I didn't, but I almost wanted to. And 4 out of the 5 games is a pretty big statistic. And the truth is game jams are rough. It is very chaotic, but I want you to know that even though it might be very stressful, these game jam mistakes will also be your future successes. You are going to learn lots through this jam. You're going to be experiencing the full game development cycle from start to finish. You're going to learn a lot more than if you spent trying to make a game during a semester, because you will learn how to properly scope your game, how to work with a team and things like that. And I think another big takeaway from this game jam will also be getting experience working in a team. You can have the best portfolio in the world, right, applying to companies, but if you don't have experience working in a team, then these companies are not going to. Well, they will want people that are better, that have lots of experience working in teams. And most of all, you will also find what you enjoy doing during this jam. Because let's say you are an artist and you have a little bit of interest in doing character art, for example. Because of the low time commitment of the jam, it is a great way. It's like a great opportunity for you to go ahead and try that and find out whether or not you enjoy doing it. All right, now what are some possible expectations you might have going into the jam? One expectation you might have is, after the game jam is done, I'm going to have a fun, finished, and polished game. The reality is that most likely is not going to happen. The game might be unfinished, it's probably going to have lots of bugs, and it might not be fun to play. While this is a possible reality, it's not for sure going to happen. This is also, of course, okay, right? This is a game jam, you're only given a week, so it is possible that your game is going to be unfinished, and that's okay. There's probably going to be lots of bugs, but that is only something you discover through playtesting and getting other people to try it, which I think is the great thing you can take away from the experience. And it's also okay if your game isn't fun to play, because if any of you are designers, I'm sure all of you know how much iterations it takes to make something good, and games are the same way, right? It takes a lot of iterations through the gameplay to make that game fun. Yes, Jerica.
Fun note, the game on the left is the Realm, and I used to private division to publish that. That game took 2 years in production. You were looking at the game.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, just remember the big thing is that you are only spending 1 week at this jam. So it is not expected that you are going to have a full-scale production game. But I do think Roller Drum also came out of a game jam. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, the initial prototype of this game was for GMTK Game Jam, if any of you have participated in that before. Another expectation you might have is that I will have to crunch to get the game jam finished. If you don't know what crunch is, it's essentially working overtime beyond the standard hours to meet a deadline. And in this case, the deadline is a week, right? And I've talked about my experiences in staying up late trying to cram and get the game finished in time. Well, the reality is that this is a game jam and you should not do that. And it is often caused by bad production, bad project scoping. If you properly scope your project and your team, when you're doing that brainstorming and planning phase, if you are honest with yourselves, do you think we can get this done in time, then you won't have to stay up late and crunch. Or if you procrastinate, that's also another reason you might be crunching and trying to get the game done in time. So we also because this is a game jam, we don't want any of you to have to stay up late doing this jam. We want to make sure that you are all healthy during this jam. Make sure to get lots of sleep and drink and eat. Yeah. So what can you do to prevent this chaos from happening, right? How can we be risk aversive when it comes to the whole game jam process? Let's go back to this scenario where I talked about staying up late and crunching. What are some of these reasons that this might happen? Number one is the scope of the project. Let's say your team is brainstorming and you decide that you want to make a platformer, right? You have a player that moves side to side and jumps. Well, let's say we want our player to jump through the sky on hot air balloons. But then let's say someone else in your team says that they want a wizard that is trying to shoot you like fireballs at you and knock you down. And then someone else adds in that they want the player to be able to deflect the fireballs, and then another person says that you should be able to patch up the hot air balloons if they get shot down. Like, that idea sounds like a lot, right? That would take a lot of effort, and that's not something that can be done in a week. So throughout the brainstorming process, be honest with yourselves, and like, is this feasible during the duration of the game jam? Probably not. So make sure you could cut it down to the point where maybe it's just a platformer jumping through hot air balloons. So that's one of the reasons that you might stay up late and crunch during a game jam. Oh. And another reason that you might stay up late is through a lack of communication. And this can come in many forms, right? Like, one form could be that no one in the team is talking, which is probably the worst form of lack of communication. So I think that the biggest thing that you should take away is that make sure that you are communicating with your teams and being honest about what your capabilities are, right? Because let's say you are an artist and your team wants you to draw 5 characters, but you're busy some days of the week and you can only do 3, but you don't communicate that to your team. They're not going to know that you can only do 3. And they're going to waste time programming all those 5 characters and maybe writing dialogue for all those 5 when the time could have spent just polishing the 3 characters that you could do. So the big takeaways that you should be taking away from this are that game jams are rough and you will make a lot of mistakes, but that is okay, because you will learn lots that you can take to and carry over to any point in your life, right? Whether or not you still want to do games or just anything else, right? School, life in general, I think that there will be a lot of things that you can take away from this jam. And the biggest thing to note is to communicate. Make sure that you are always communicating with your teams. That is the number one way that the game jam will go smoothly and everything is done on time. And thank you. That is the end of my talk. If anyone has any questions about the talk or about games in general, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you. I'll wait like 10 seconds, and if not, then that's it. All right, thank you.
Is it unmuted?
Yeah, it's unmuted.
All right. Hi, everyone. Feel free to keep working. I won't be offended if you want to work in the background, but I'm just going to get started. My talk is called Intro to Theme-Based Game Design, which I hope is topical because you're designing based on a theme today. Yeah, let's just jump right in. Before I get into theme-based game design, quick recap on who I am. I'm Jerica Manuel, currently a business development associate at Netflix. Before that, I used to work in mobile game development, also worked on product data operations at Facebook Gaming, which I don't know if any of you have used Facebook at this point, but after that, I spent most of my time in production at publishers, and I've worked on games here, for example, Roller Drone, which I was talking to Mikyle about earlier. But before all of this, my professional career, I also was a student. So I came into USC as a computer science major. I switched my major to computer science games, added a double major in interactive entertainment and also a minor in game marketing, and then found out I don't have enough credits to graduate in 4 years, so I dropped both of those. And the point of that story, though, is that I think that if you're interested in being in games, what matters most is passion and your interest in games, and being here at a game jam and actually working on projects that are relevant to the industry, massively more important than the major that you're in. So if you're thinking about switching your major, or if you're not sure that you're happy in your current one, if you're interested in games, at the end of the day, I think it doesn't really matter what you major in. Obviously, I hope that you pick something that you're interested in. You can still go into a job that you want based on your passions and what your interests are. So jumping right into theme-based game design, can't talk about game design until you theme is, and let's define it together. Game theme refers to the overarching concept, subject matter, or central idea that drives the narrative and setting of the game, represents the underlying message, motif, or emotional core that the game explores and communicates to the players, blah, blah, blah. What that means is a theme is the wrapper or the context that your game centers itself around. So why do we care about theme? Well, one, it allows players to connect with the learning experience of your game. And what I mean by that is, how do players learn to be successful in your game, right? How are you tutorializing that? And how will they feel motivated to interact in the way that you're designing for it, right? So consider like running and jumping, right? Why are they running and jumping? Are they doing that to explore, like in Mario, or is it a prison game and running and jumping means you're escaping, right? It allows you to attach that feeling of learning how to interact with your game. And secondly, it allows you to establish moments of emotional resonance with your game, right? Consider the prison theme. Should your players feel scared, right, going into your game because they're trying to escape something? Or with your approach to theme in a prison game, imagine you're trying to escape to get to your family. Now there's a hopeful emotional attachment to it, right? So all depends on how you as the game designer want to position your game. But why do we care today? Well, I mentioned it at the top of this presentation, but you're at a game jam, and this game jam has a theme, so I think it's a little bit important to talk about how to design based on theme. So, in a quick example, what are some primary themes of Pokemon? Feel free to just shout them out.
Friendship.
Friendship, excellent. Yeah, famously, it's on the box, gotta catch them all, right? But also friendship, rivalry, and adventure, right? These things are important because it allows you to connect with the whole goal of like filling out the Pokédex. That's why Professor Oak gives you Pokemon in the first place. Like everyone thinks it's to be, you know, the best Pokemon master of all, but actually Professor Oak tells you to go out to collect Pokemon for your Pokédex. Anyway, consider a world without theme, right? If you examine what a Pokemon battle is, now it's up to you as the player to interpret what you're doing in the game. So for me, if without the theme of like creature collection and then training to have the strongest team, Charmander attacking Caterpie becomes like, did I just murder that guy's pet? You know what I mean? Like it's now up to the player to interpret what you've put in the game. But if theme is essential to driving the message of your game, you as the game designer have to take the reins and channel their attention to something that is intentional and made by you. Right, we get it, blah, blah, blah. Now what? How do I do that, right? How do I be intentional? How do I design for it? And so I've broken that into 3 steps. And please remember that this is one approach of so many different ways to design for a game. But consider for today, you can, based on the theme, decide what messages you'd like to send. 2, map out your emotional journey. And 3, you can finally marry those 2 with your game mechanics. So notice that game mechanics come last. Sometimes when you think of game design, you think of game mechanics first, but today's talk is about designing based on a theme. So we'll start with messages first. The next 3 slides, we'll double click into that. So hopefully this makes sense. And also, I didn't say this at the top, but please feel free to interrupt me with any questions or clarifications on anything. I know I'm kind of moving through all this kind of fast. Right, so first, messages are assertive statements. So a theme is just, you know, a concept until you attach a statement to it, right? This allows you as this designer to actually put connective tissue in your game to drive the player experience, right? Consider Pokemon again, and I promise there will be other examples in this that aren't Pokemon. But with the theme of friendship, right, you can say so many things about friendship where it's like, my friends always leave me, friends don't matter. But in the context of Pokemon, because you rely on your friends, you can assume one of the messages is it's important to trust your friends. So the implementation of leveling up your Pokemon, success based on your friends, right, drives the message home that it's a positive one, right? It's important to trust your friends. Moving on to emotional journeys. Emotions help you form memories, right? You have a message that you want to send, when you attach emotion to it, that's really what strikes home, right? And I'm sure all of you have played games that have really touched you in the feels. And the reason is because the designers have attached that emotion to the message they're trying to send. Final Fantasy VII, same theme of friendship, and it also has messages in the beginning that it's important to trust your friends, but in the middle of the game, when you attach emotion, sadness, hopelessness, the message changes, right? You have a new message. It's painful to lose a close friend. So these things can work in tandem, and it's also important to think as a designer sequentially, what's important to put home in the beginning, what's important to then move players into the next emotion, and what emotion do you want to put out at the end of your game, right? Do you want to send a message of hope, loss, whatever it is, it's up to you as the designer. And that's the beauty of something as creative as designing for a game. Last but not least, this is probably the longest and most complex piece, is tying it all together with game mechanics, right? So you have a message, you have the emotions that you want to work with. Hopefully you have kind of a sequential map of the emotions you want to carry your players through. The last bit is game mechanics, right? And there's a lot of game theory on here, a lot of different approaches as to how to approach game mechanics. Across a lot of academia, you'll see mechanics broken up into verbs and dynamics. So if you take an interactive narrative game like The Wolf Among Us, very simple verbs you can use to describe the actions in there: talk, move, and hit. But as the designer, you can add context in your game to now mean talking. Depending on who I'm talking to, what my intent is, talking could mean lying. It could mean giving information. It could mean flirting, right? It could mean a bunch of different things depending on your environment, who you're talking to, and the setting that you're creating. Hitting, right? Does hitting mean you're knocking on a door? Or does it mean you're literally punching someone in the face with a cup, right? That's an attack. So think of, game mechanics as very simple verbs, and the dynamics you use to make it unique in your own game and relative to the theme that you're also working on. Hopefully that makes sense. I spent a whole semester on verbs and dynamics in school, and I tried to fit that into 2 minutes. So feel free to ask any questions if you have them. So recap, once you have your emotional journey mapped out, you can plan the introduction of game mechanics alongside story elements, difficulty scaling, player agency, all these things to amplify the messages that you want to send based on your theme. All right, so now that you have all the tools in your toolbox, I thought it would be fun to do an example game design. Spoiler alert, I've already designed the game, but you're just gonna go on the journey with me. So consider the theme running out of space. So many different messages you can send about this. So one thing that's really important is scoping down the assumptions of a statement like this. So no more space where? In my room, on my phone. Maybe it's not even talking about, space saving. Maybe it's escaping, right? Are we escaping outer space? Maybe we make the game so large the player runs out of space. Obviously don't do this, but it's also a fun play on words, right? And you're subverting expectations. So very fun to play with the words of your theme, especially when you're in a game jam. You can try different things, be innovative. But for the purposes of this exercise, let's assume that we're running out of space in our home. Some messages we can send. You can't hold on to everything forever. It's okay to let things go. Having too many things can cause stress. I'm guilty of this. And the primary message, let's assume it can be relaxing to throw things away. And so all of these are leaning a little bit somber, right? So you might be thinking, I'm making a game based on giving things up and it's going to be sad, blah, blah, blah. But actually, what if I wanted to design something joyful, right? Something where the players feel curious and they feel amused and surprised. And so I want to take, I just broke everything. I'm sorry. So I'm taking these messages, putting a positive spin on it, and what I want to do is take a look at some games that have similar vibes, right? Power Wash Simulator, Unpacking, these are cleaning games, but I want to think about some basic verbs that I want for my game. Talk, move, open, and throw. Maybe, I'm walking through my house and I'm throwing things away. Some talking stuff, maybe I'm talking to myself, inner dialogue. I'm convincing myself that it's okay to throw away the 6th water bottle that I bought for myself, right? And it's okay to clean, it's okay to discover new things about myself, even though I shove things down. It's an interesting game about cleaning, right? I'm thinking, putting all these things together, right? So the reminder is up in the corner. The messages that I want to send, primary, it can be relaxing to throw things away, emotions of joy, amusement, surprise. My game pitch, Take Space, Make Space, is a lighthearted, comedic 2D point-and-click adventure game where you play Benji, a doggy life coach who helps other dogs declutter. Help your doggy clients process their silly thoughts as they navigate the complex emotions of throwing away their old toys and make space for new ones. So this took the initial, what was the thing? Running out of space, right? And made it fun by attaching dogs to it. It always makes things a little bit more lighthearted, right? When you have animals, you have like a cartoon art theme, right? How does your art, your mechanics, all of these things play into the vibe that you're putting out in your game and what you're designing for? So I haven't copyrighted this. If you ever want to make a game based on this pitch, feel free to take it and then hit me up, because I'd love to play something like this. But yeah, anyway. One quick disclaimer on theme. Wrapping up soon. A theme can be a powerful tool, but not every game needs to have a theme. We're talking about this today because your game jam for this week does have a theme, but be mindful that, Bejeweled, Solitaire, Minesweeper, and even a modern game like Wordle, these don't need to have themes because they're very mechanic-centric. Just know that if you don't have a strong theme attached, it could limit the emotional attachment that you have to your game. I don't think that's always true because I have an emotional attachment to Wordle when I lose, but just something to keep in mind, right? So yeah, in conclusion, theme can allow you to create meaningful connections between your game's mechanics and your players, activate on a theme and intended emotions by effectively delivering your game's messages. And 3, not every game needs a theme. So I think we are at the end. Let me know if you have any questions. Well, I'll be in the corner if you have any questions for me, but good luck. Oh, actually, I had an exercise for you for the theme. If it helps you brainstorm, you can use these to, pick a direction if your team hasn't done so yet. But just again, one approach to designing your game for the week and one approach to scoping. Yeah, feel free to use this exercise as you keep chugging along. Thanks, y'all.